It's about listening and sharing viewpoints. Our We Stand Together series continues tonight. Phil?
Yeah, and Kylie, as you very well know, it's been around for 100 years. The organization, the ACLU, also known as the American Civil Liberties Union. For them, it's the dedication to the fight for the freedom and rights for all. Today, I sat down with the executive director of ACLU Indiana. All right, so it's been more than a month since the George Floyd incident. Has anything changed? And if so, has there been enough change?
Well, I can answer the second question first. Of course, there hasn't been enough change. And have things changed? Yes. But this is just one moment in a series or centuries of moments, right? And George Floyd, tragic death, was not the first death captured on film, a victim of police brutality. And it may not be the last before we see the end to over-policing of communities of color. But what is different, I think, about this moment is the understanding, the penetration into the public consciousness of how awful the consequences of systemic racism are on our whole community, but particularly amongst our black and brown neighbors.
You mentioned it. We've seen this time and time again. I mean, going back to even before Rodney King. I mean, this has been going on for years. Eric Gardner. I mean, you can say the names. Why do you think this one was different?
You know, how can you ever know when the world reaches a tipping point on an issue? What causes that tipping point to occur? You know, is it a little bit because of the pandemic and our distractions are limited? Is it because the pandemic has created some compassion and empathy amongst all of us? Is it because of the incredible brutality of George Floyd's death, of the bravery of the young girl who filmed his death, despite being, you know, intimidated by the police officers? It's probably all of those things, and it is all the cumulative moments before us. I mean, we've been talking about the need for systemic reform in how we deal with race in this country, with how our criminal legal system results in mass incarceration, particularly focused on communities of color. We've been talking about this for decades, and certainly the black and brown communities have been feeling the brunt of it for centuries.
What would the ACLU like to see done? Give me. I mean, I know it's a broad question and a broad topic, and we could probably sit here for a long time and discuss it. But if you can give me a couple of top changes that you would like.
Sure. Well, luckily, the ACLU is a 100-year-old advocacy organization that has been focusing on holding our government accountable to the potential and promises of the Constitution. Half of us are lawyers, so guess what? We've got a plan. And we've had for years a campaign to end mass incarceration, and that is focused on changing our criminal legal system from the beginning interaction between police and individuals all the way through the consequences of our mass incarceration system. We have a blueprint for Indiana, how to cut mass incarceration by half. We have, and those specific policies, and again, changing every point along the system. And you know, the events of this summer have put a spotlight on policing and how we over-police communities of color. Then there's interactions all along the spectrum of our criminal legal system that disproportionately impact people of color, especially black men. You know, giving them longer sentences for the same offense, keeping them in jail, denying them bail. All of those points of contact have a disproportionate impact on communities of color.
We're running out of time, so I got one more question for you. If you could pick one thing that needs to change here in Indianapolis, what would that be?
We have to reimagining the role of police in our lives. We have to make police, give them a smaller role, their duties and role more circumscribed. We need to devote fewer tax dollars to funding them. We need to stop paying for more officers and more military equipment. We need to stop enforcing non-serious crimes like selling illegal cigarettes in New York can get you killed. Stop those interactions. Stop asking our police officers to act as mental health clinicians.
Let me just push back on you for one
out of
second here,
schools.
because I know that a lot of people are going to watch this and say, you say stop putting money into hiring more cops. There might be somebody at home that says, won't that make me less safe?
We can still have police officers that respond to violent crime, and it's an important question, right? I mean, we have murders in the city of Indianapolis. We're not saying that the ACLU is not saying that police officers should not be able to respond to violent crime. We're saying that there are so many, there's an expanded role, an ever-expanding role that we're asking police officers to play that have led to this point where we are now. And we at the ACLU are following the call of Black and Brown-led organizations and demanding that the role of police change, that police stop surveilling communities of color, stop harassing them. And I think that if we are to make the most of this moment, we engage with everyone in the community and think, what if we ask police to do that's too much, and what can we do, ask them to do something differently, and use the residual money to hire more mental health counselors in schools and in the community, have better housing, better job opportunities, better schools.
A long way to go.
Yeah.
One final thought for the folks at home. What would you want them to know? What do you want them to take away from our interview here?
I think we need at this moment to listen to the pain, the honest experience of colors of community. I think we need to look in our hearts and recognize when that each of us has an evolution to undergo in eliminating racism in our actions, in our thoughts, in our hearts, and they have an affirmative duty to take up anti-racist policies that will make sure that we the people really truly have equality and justice for all.
Our We Stand Together series will continue this week on News 8 at 10 o'clock, and you can see all of our profiles online right now at wishtv.com.